Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is Psychic Medium Raymond Guzman, and today I'm going to be doing a psychic reading on George Michael. And this is somebody that's been asked for me to do a psychic reading on, so I'm going to do it. For those of you that don't know who George Michael is, he definitely is someone that was a singer, songwriter, performer from the UK, from Britain. So shout out to my UK peeps. Thank you so much for being here, my rays of light from the UK, and all the fans of George Michael. And so when I get into George's soul and energy, I feel like he was a very vibrant, flamboyant type of energy. Um, he loved fashion. He loved his hair being a certain way. He had his own unique style. Growing up, though, I feel like he was a very conflicted time frame where he knew deep inside he was gay, but identified as bisexual. And again, he would have had partners. This is known by people, out in the tabloids and history, that he had relationships during his Wham period, with females. And but ultimately he knew who he was. I feel it was like almost like a facade. And he said this before. So for him, it was a lot of struggles growing up, and also trying to establish a career in the industry. They wanted him to, they knew, his producers, the record people, they knew of his sexuality and his sexual orientation, but they wanted him to be presented in a certain way as like a straight man or bisexual, because they felt like it would drive revenue sales up. It would attract a lot of female fans and stuff like that. So I don't feel like he agreed with every decision that the record companies made and the people that were managing him. There was always, like, I see him having, rolling his eyes and just like not feeling good, like smoking, and not feeling good about reading things in the tabloids that he saw of himself that were not true. And a lot of this was stuff that the publicists, agreed on publishing or putting out, that he didn't want worded a certain way, or he didn't like a certain picture. He was very meticulous. I feel like he was very hands-on in his way that he was presented, from album covers to photographs that were put, used in the press for press photos and stuff like that. I just get that he was, that type of person that is like, he had to have some kind of control. And he got to a certain point in his life, where he saw a lot of people in happy relationships, but he ultimately, I feel like, didn't feel like he would ever be in a full long-term relationship at all. I feel like he had a lot of lovers and just one-night stands and things like that, and he got tired of it. It was a very fast life. That's what he makes me feel. Full of drugs, addictions, and things that ultimately, did do a number on his body. And I think a lot of people that are in their 20s and 30s don't realize, the effects of these drugs and alcohol and just drugs on the system, until they get into their 40s or 50s and something, breaks down. The body eventually gives up. So your body is your temple. You have to take care of it. And he's saying, from what I'm getting, is that he knows that, and he realizes that now. If he could go back, he does regret some of the decisions that he made with some of these partners that didn't really care about him, but saw him basically as a piece of meat. And that's how the industry saw him, like the music records and stuff. They basically saw him as something, just that generates money and income. And I've done other readings on other celebrities, so it's not much different when it comes to the mentality of these record companies. For them, they could care less if the singer is sick, if the singer has a broken bone, as long as they can, make money and go on stage, in a semi-well condition. That's all that they care about. And it's just very sad that he had to go through this. He's saying that he was not understood by many, but he was understood by some close female friends, celebrities that, were in that world. He felt very understood by them. But when it came to love, he never really felt true love at all. I am getting that there were people that who turned their back and support on him when they found out about his drug addiction, and people that wanted to change him. Ultimately, he knew that he was the only one that could change his way of being and change, his damaged self. Because I do feel like he did go through bouts of depression as well. And this affected his music. And it's very evident in some songs that he would be publishing that he did tell stories. And I feel like there's still some songs that he has that are unreleased that may come out at a later time, like another album. People are still trying to profit off of George Michael's. It's very disconcerting to hear, that that's going on. But again, his name, he's a legend, so a lot of people are still going to try to emulate him or make money off of his name and reputation. He makes me feel like, he was just tired, very tired of this music, and he wanted to eventually, like, just stay at home, travel, and get away from the industry, and have some time and peace for himself, because it was like a machine running for so many years. And they wanted him to do so many different things that he didn't want to do, which was like having basically sex with people that he didn't really love or was not really attracted to. But these would have been high prolific men that would have paid quite a bit. So to say the least, he was very used in many ways, attending these parties that would have had, orgies, would have had drugs, cocaine, sniffing that, he did it all. I feel like he was in that kind of world. And I'm sorry to say this for his family that may still be alive, or people that are watching that knew him, but that's what I pick up. And I can't, filter from what Spirit is telling me, from what his soul's given me. And that's what I feel. It was just a very dark world that he existed in, and he was a beacon of light. Like, ultimately, he was very creative, very, like, the UK's version of Prince. I hate to, like, compare him, but that's, like, who he was. And I do feel like he feels like he wasn't also compensated the way that he would have liked to. He feels in his mentality and his mind, now that he is in spirit, that he could have been more famous. Like, he could have been even more global than what he already was. And even though he was famous and he's an icon, there could have just been more that was given to him. Also money, like, he wasn't paid out certain things. Like, people were taking money more on his management team part. They were taking money and just lying to him, and like, he was like not that person to be a fool. Like, he knew that they would lie to him. They would lie to him about his schedules, that he wasn't booked, that he could go on vacation. Then all of a sudden, oh, well, we are routing you to, Asia or, Australia, because you have shows to do. And they would book him without consulting with him. Very shady tactics from his people, his close people, on his team. But ultimately, they would tell him, well, you're going to be making this money and you're going to be doing this, so just do it. You don't want to disappoint your fans. And it was almost like threatening him about his fans, but his fans would have understood if he needed to take time off, etc. When he comes into the relationships with the men he was blackmailed, I get that he would have been blackmailed by some of the relationships, and they were going to publish details or risque photos that would have compromised his integrity, or he in compromising positions and like bed, being naked, things like that. They had nudes and stuff like that on him, and there was a lot of blackmail from his lovers as well. And this is stuff I don't know that other people have talked about or it's known, but that's what I'm getting. And I feel like with his last partner that found him, that relationship was toxic already. Was there foul play in his death? Because people have said that it was his liver, that it was his heart, and then but it wasn't suspicious. Yes, he would have had health issues, but I feel like there's definitely some suspicion here. There is foul play with George Michael's death, and I feel like there would have been something, again, slipped into his drinks, into his food, that he wasn't aware of, because he was very trusting. And does his partner, that last partner, know anything? I feel like he does know something, and he's not going to say anything. I feel like George although he did love him, they were not the best couple towards the end. And I feel like that partner would have been cheating on George. And so, in order to end that relationship, I feel like George would have had some difficulty getting away from this because, again, of his power at this time. You know, George Michael was very known when he died, and a very powerful man. So there would have been connections. You know, George would have had people in places like watching his boyfriend or this partner, and knowing exactly what he was doing, what he was up to, and there would have been some powerful conversations prior to his death. You know, do you love me? Why are you being this way? Just, you know, a lot of this, but I feel like the partner's not going to talk about this, is not going to reveal this, because again, it would incriminate them in many ways. Now, I'm not saying that the partner is responsible for George Michael's passing, but he does know something, and there was substances fed to George Michael that would have caused, over time, over a specific amount of time, caused his heart to enlarge and just not function the way, ultimately prompting a heart attack. Okay, so there is some truth in the method that he died, but I do feel like there was drugs involved in this, and George was, I feel like, in a place where he knew he couldn't handle drugs, but he still had cravings for it. And so some of this also, I feel like he would have still had some drug addictions, even though he was still being given maybe more than what he was taking. There's definitely was some foul play in all of this, but he could never get rid or conquer that addiction. He did for a while, but he would always come back to it. It was just greater than what he could, you know. And a lot of people that are on drugs, or that have been, that would be listening to this, may understand it. It's very difficult, and people don't ultimately think that they're going to pass from it. But I feel like it was like, whoever was, you know, wherever he bought these substances and was getting it from, it became so, they are responsible for it ultimately, because they were just giving him, you know, he had the money for it. So basically it's easier to access these kind of things when you're a celebrity. And George would have known, you know, who to buy it from, or not him, but, you know, have some other person pick it up, blah, blah, blah. So I do get that he would have still been addicted to substances, but he would have been also been slipped something or given something over a course of period of time that would have, you know, even made things worse. And so coupled with his health problems that he would have had, I feel like he did have, you know, problems with his abdominal area as well, some swelling, some inflammation. He would have had some problems in his private regions, front and back. There would have been some issues there. I'm not going to go into detail out of respect, but basically men issues with urination, with an enlarged prostate, things like that. There would have been some issues of that going on as well with him. And I don't know if he was HIV positive, but I keep feeling like this is kind of like hidden. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know about George Michael, but he keeps making me feel like, and I keep hearing that he would have been HIV positive. So again, I feel like somewhere along the lines he would have contracted AIDS, and this would have ultimately weakened his immune system, where he would have had these issues going on, which eventually contributed to his death. But his last partner that discovered the body does know about this. He knows of all of this. He knows that things, you know, that were done, and I feel like he is partly to blame because he never stopped him, because I feel like he did love George in some ways, but in some ways he was tired of George because of the drugs and the manipulation. Like, George was very controlling, I feel, of this relationship, and so this guy would have sought solace somewhere else. Again, lots of lies, manipulation, drug use, and so this contributed to George's passing, and that's the gist of it, guys. That's what I get. You know, is his soul in peace? Yes. the message to his fans would be to, you know, not remember him as the person that had drug issues, but as the prolific singer and performer that he was, you know, that dynamic star, that gem, you know, that always shined on stage and that was, you know, friendly to people and very giving. Because he was giving to people, like, even though through all of his struggles, his personal struggles, because none of us are perfect, he did give back to charities and work with organizations. You know, he was just a great person overall, and if he would have had more support, I feel like he maybe could have overcome his addictions. But I feel like ultimately he was a free spirit, kind of like Amy Winehouse, just a very free soul, you know, very creative music genius, and that's what I get. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Psychic Medium Ray. And this month, I'm running a sale on all of my readings. If you want to book a reading, you can go to my website at www.raymondguzman.net/shop. Blessings and love and light. Have an amazing, amazing day or night, wherever you are in the world.